5 years ago, the National Policy for the Education of Girls in Australian Schools was introduced. It aimed to raise awareness of their educational needs, making sure they had equal access to and participation in previously male-dominated subjects like science and maths. Now an action plan highlighting educational and social needs of girls will be introduced. Various strategies have been suggested, including segregated playgrounds and quality teaching. School principals will decide what action, if any, they'll take.
Quality teaching, when one has a combined class, would be that one perhaps deals with a girl slightly differently and recognises the different patterns as opposed to boys.
For the past 12 years, Waratah Technology High School near Newcastle has segregated its science classes in years 8 to 10. Studies have shown not only an improvement in the girls' marks, but also in self-esteem.
We found that the girls have improved. They've improved academically. We have more girls taking physics and chemistry in senior schools, and we've even got girls who are now studying science-related subjects at university.
It's a program that has many supporters.
With the guys in the class, the girls won't participate and the guys are just stuck with doing all the work and the girls sit there talking.
They think they have to do everything and girls can't do stuff. So you think that you're not good enough, so you don't do things.
It stacks better, you can get lots more work done.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
McDonald's at Broadmeadow was the latest target for people trying to get some change out of a fake $100 bill. Two men in a white sedan tried to pass off the bill at the drive-through section of the store.
We instructed the car to move into our waiting bay and we told them that we're waiting a couple of minutes on their food. During that time we called the police straight away because we knew it was a fake $100 bill.
Detectives from Hamilton Police Station are interviewing two men. Detective Nolan says a number of counterfeit $100 bills have been successfully used in Newcastle nightclubs and pubs in the last few weeks.
What we suggest is that if business people do receive any $100 notes, that they do check them before they actually give people a change. And if they have any suspicions in relation to the money, to contact their nearest police.
On this occasion, the fake $100 bill wasn't worth the paper it was written on. Jane Anderson, NBN News. A decade after Stuart Dibley had a melanoma on his chest removed, the cancer reappeared in the lymph nodes under his arm.
I wonder would I make it? Because it was obviously something pretty bad, and I took a biopsy and said, right, we do you in a couple of days.
The secondary cancer in Stuart's lymph glands was also removed, and doctors believe it's unlikely to recur. Just how cancer spreads from its primary site to other vital organs in the body is the subject of an intense research study at Newcastle University. This video shows how a melanoma cell can invade other parts of the body.
Well, we hope to discover how cancer cells move with the ultimate aim of preventing them moving from the primary site to form secondary tumours.
The research unit has identified two molecules involved in the migration of healthy cells. By understanding how cancer cells move through the body, researchers hope to improve treatments for cancer patients.
The new treatments would involve surgical removal of the primary from whatever site, and then treatment to prevent the spread, which wouldn't involve chemotherapy or radiotherapy or other toxic treatments.
The research project is being funded by NBN's Telethon and a number of other grants. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
once a gathering place for the faithful, the Central Methodist Hall in King Street began a dramatic new life today. In a coming together of the political and theatrical worlds, Newcastle's Lady Mayoress Margaret McNaughton launched the new Mission Theatre with a cut of the ribbon and a rousing rendition of a ditty you would have once never heard in here in a month of Sundays. To buy and refurbish the 500-seat theatre has cost Novocastrian Productions $500,000 and 2 years hard labour.
It was a mess because the plaster was falling off the wall, it was dirty, but it just had a lovely feel about it. You know, you walked in here, you spoke, you sang, and the acoustics were beautiful, and it just spoke theatre.
But isn't the company worried that all the unbridled joviality planned for this place of former temperance will make the walls shake?
No, I'm a Methodist myself. We do have a soul. No, I don't think so at all. I think it's good that it's kept it because, you know, church has always been community, theatre is community, and that's what it's all about.
Scott Bevan, NBN News. The Support Office says the crisis has hit hundreds of new and continuing students unable to pay uni fees on their own.
We're finding that students that are seeing us this year for loans for things like accommodation and fees and charges are actually a lot worse off than normal.
Annette Rudd says the $1.50 rise in Oz study has done little to help students cover increased costs of textbooks and living expenses.
For last year, for example, we might have given out, say, 750 loans over the entire year. This year, I would anticipate that by the end of March, we would have given out 500 or more loans.
Staff shortages and lack of interview space force the Support Office to use funds allocated to the Students' Association to help cope with the backlog. The Students' Representative Council says it's handed out $22,000 in just 6 days.
So we're hopeful that all students that need fees and charges are one way or another being dealt with this year, but it's definitely something that if this recession continues, we really need to keep a watch on and plan for next year.
The former Kiwi international was once king of the nights, putting his head down and leading by example. Today he caught an unexpected flick pass to accept the club's first ever life membership. The award is for his efforts on field and for establishing the Knights within the community. It's the first honour of its kind by the young club and unlikely to become a regular event.
Well, if we were lucky enough to get someone as special as Sam come along every year, we'd have one every year, but in reality, no, it'll be something that's given out only on occasions.
Sam, who was just signed with the Central Charlestown team, says he won't forget his time in the big league quickly.
The fact that I've been given the first life membership really hasn't really sunk it in, but there's nothing that comes second at this stage, and it's probably the number one award that I've ever received.
And another first for the Knights today with the announcement of their official cheer squad. The team is made up of members from the Lakeside Gymnastic Academy and will be responsible for providing half-time entertainment and geeing up the crowd when the Knights score. A thumping 15-knot easterly wind turned the swell at Newcastle Beach into a swirling mess. Today, those who lost out in the main rounds took to the surf, trying to win through to the finals the hard way.
The guys, as the week's progressing, naturally they're getting tighter and tighter each heat they're doing, and especially the losers. The guys that are coming through in the main rounds, first and second, they only actually surf once a day. So the guys in the losers rounds are surfing twice, which physically is a lot more straining.
And the strain was definitely beginning to show. The swell was just over a metre, and competitors in one heat were lucky to make it out the back. Time and again they tried, but were turned back or upside down. Finally, one guy gave up and caught the whitewash. The big shock for the day was current world champion Rhys Duncan again struggling in his heat, this time in the losers round.
The break has got a lot to do with it. Rhys is foreign to the Newcastle break, and he's having a lot of trouble adapting to it.
The losers' heats will continue tomorrow and will determine the finals make-up for Saturday. Darren Curtis, NBN News. The first grade semi in top grade will be between Merewether and Lambton New Lambton. Merewether have been undefeated all season and they're obviously hoping to retain that tag. This afternoon they managed to get in their first training session for the week. Rain had earlier stopped them from getting on a field. Young Phil Stanbridge is looming as his side's big hope with the bat. Last week he racked up a century. Captain David Young says his players like Phil are coming to their peak with the help of the team's more senior members.
We've got a couple of guys this year, Peter Shatt and Tim Griffiths, who have been around a while. They came into the side. And you've got David Palmer and Greg McNeil have been around for a while as well, so it's worked out that we have got a lot of guys around the 30-year mark, which I think is a benefit to us.
Lambton captain David Marjoribanks says his side won't be overawed by his opposition's record. He says they're quite happy being the underdogs.
We had a pretty close game with them in the earlier rounds in the competition. A couple of things had gone our way, we probably would have got up in that match.
Saturday's final will be played at the New Look No. 1 Sports Ground. Late this afternoon, ground staff were still installing seating. It will be the first test for the facilities since the earthquake.
As if planning for a battle, political hopefuls and the incumbents have been drilling their troops in preparation for manning voting booths across the Hunter tomorrow. Independent candidate for Newcastle, Ivan Welsh, says the 60 people working for him are part of a job creation scheme.
These are young people from the local unemployed CES offices, the unemployed, the people we're fighting for, and we're trying to give them a job. It's only one day job, I guess, but I'd like to make it forever.
And what are you paying them?
Well, certainly a little bit more than Mr Houston's $3.50 an hour.
At the Australian Electoral Commission's office in Newcastle, there was a steady stream of pre-poll voters.
We've actually issued 1,300 pre-poll votes so far, up until last night. It's the most that we've ever issued prior to an election.
Mr Jones says those not in the area tomorrow can still vote.
All they have to do is go along to any polling place in New South Wales, give their name and address on the roll, and the people there will give them an absentee vote.
With less than 24 hours to go until election day, many voters say they're still undecided as to which way they'll vote.
I'm just undecided, so it's too complicated.
Excuse me, have you decided which way you're going to vote?
No idea. Wait till I get in there and see what grabs me at the time. Thanks.
Polling booths are open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
More than 150 pairs of arms thrashed the tranquil waters of Port Stephens for the 1 kilometre swim leg of the triathlon. Elite athletes after personal best and relay team members determined not to let their mates down. A Navy swimmer broke well clear to lead the charge up the beach. Ahead, a 33-kilometre bike ride to Williamtown. Lead cyclists averaging 60 kilometres an hour. The man to beat, Dave Collins, a crewman with the Williamtown RAF rescue helicopter. Dave's gears jammed, he carried on with one. Overhead, a morale-boosting appearance from his crewmates saw him finish the ride in third place. First woman off the bike's Louise McNulty from Sydney. A change of lead as the runners emerged from a 10-kilometre slog around the base. Williamtown's Scott Weaver's taking a wrong turn. Dave Collins first over the line in 1:41.09. The Navy's Louise McNulty first woman home.
I think really Scott should have won the race fairly convincingly.
At the end there, an added morale boost with the chopper coming over.
Yeah, a bit of support. Not a bad having a support vehicle like that.
The accident was on the corner of Brisbane and Rabaul Avenues in Umina. A silver Toyota utility collided with a telecom van, causing it to turn on its side, trapping the male driver. The 28-year-old male driver of the ute and his two teenage female passengers, all from the Umina area, were taken to Gosford Hospital. The women were treated for minor injuries and later released. The driver suffered head and chest injuries. He's still in hospital. After 2.5 hours, rescue officers released the 19-year-old male driver from the telecom van. The driver, also from the local area, suffered fractures to his lower limbs and remains in hospital. Police are still investigating the incident. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
It was billed as a night of double trouble and the slogan couldn't be more appropriate. These stands at the Newcastle Entertainment Centre were meant to be packed on Friday for a night of boxing featuring Troy Waters and Spike Cheney against two American fighters. But the bad weather now sweeping the states has stopped the contenders from flying out. They could have wangled a flight today, but wouldn't arrive until 10 hours before the fight.
They would have been zombies. It would have been an insult to the people of Newcastle, and it wouldn't have done justice to the fighters themselves.
The program has now been moved to next Friday, and tickets already purchased will still be valid. Anyone who has bought a ticket but can't get there is entitled to a refund. The delay has also thrown training plans out of whack.
I can't go worrying about it. I'll just settle down again and think about next week. It's just something that's been put up and I have to get over it, and if I worry about it, it's just going to upset me more, so I'll just forget about it now.
But it's also a blessing for Waters.
Troy will probably appreciate it because he banged his hand and he had a bit of pain. It was nothing serious, but it was a bit swollen. So the week probably won't affect him.
It's the first venture by the Entertainment Centre to stage boxing, and the first time a major bout will be held outside a capital city, so promoters are feeling the pressure. However, they are confident the crowds will still come. They've already sold more than 1,000 tickets and every corporate box has been booked.
Dave Thomas from the Department of Conservation and Land Management can keep his eye on Australia's creeping salinity problem from his desk. A satellite image relayed through his computer can detail soil types, moisture levels, salt levels. As our soils become more saline and less fertile, farmers and governments are fighting to reverse the trend.
We can pick out the areas where we think salinity is going to be, there's not a major problem at the moment, but is developing, and we can take remedial action now rather than wait for it to get worse in the future.
These pictures came from an American satellite 700 kilometres above the Earth. The satellite's wavelengths monitoring a 15-kilometre square zone. Farmers can get images of their properties and make managerial decisions. In cotton growing, for example, such an image can tell if the crop is developing as it should.
They can actually tell where areas need water or where areas are suffering from insect attack. Where problems are occurring actually before they become readily apparent to the naked eye of someone driving around.
A detailed look at satellite farming on NBN's Country Report, Saturday morning at 8.
For 3 months, 50 miners from New Vale have been battling to have their former workplace reopened. But today, after Pacific Power rejected the miners' second proposal to lease the colliery, the leaders were wondering if the fight had been knocked out of them.
I'll put it to you, fellas, all those in favour of continuing on with the struggle. Fight on. Fight on.
With morale boosted, the miners began plans to walk for work, with a march from Newcastle to State Parliament House if their lease proposal is rejected again.
We want representation to Premier Fay. We want to talk to him. We want to tell him our side of the story. We're completely frustrated with Pacific Power, the way they've gone about this. I don't think they're playing a fair game whatsoever.
Pacific Power says it hasn't been moving the goalposts around during negotiations. It's just that the organisation doesn't believe the lease proposal is commercially viable and that taxpayers shouldn't have to subsidise the New Vale miners. The men say they're already being subsidised by not working.
We're all on the dole. The subsidiaries that have lost employment because of us are all on the dole. I just don't go along with their crap.
In a last-ditch effort, the miners and their consultant, Ron McCullough, are formulating a new proposal, offering the state government a larger buyout figure at the end of the 3-year lease.
Hopefully, on a net present value basis, it will be closer to $4 million, and the present proposal is only about $2.5 million.
This latest proposal will be submitted on Friday. If Pacific Power doesn't give them answers, the miners will be on the road to Sydney by next Wednesday. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
Parents pushed their strollers from far and wide to take part in the contest. While the waiting was nerve-wracking for some, others slept through their big moment. The judges gave awards to the baby with the best personality and the best smile. Various community groups were at the centre to give advice about postnatal care, feeding problems, sudden infant death syndrome and accident prevention.
I think there's a lot of young mums particularly out there that are sort of finding it a little bit difficult on their own and not really know where to go for advice, and by offering this advice for them in a community situation has been very worthwhile. So the message is community awareness.
The event will again be staged at Charlestown Square next Friday. Money raised will go to the Tingara Centre for Deaf and Blind Children. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
The power base of the Mayor, Rosemary Leach, has been eroded over the last few weeks. Alderman Leach's control over the Martin Street issue was taken away, and her deputy, Richard Torbay, was appointed to negotiate an end to the problem. And on Monday night, the council dumped Mayor Leach as chairperson of the Consultative Committee on Council Workers' Pay Rates. This followed allegations that council workers were prevented from speaking out about their pay conditions. But Rosemary Leach says she won't resign as mayor. She says a faction on council is out to destroy her credibility and her leadership.
Obviously, there has been a faction on council for some time that would like to remove me as mayor, and they've certainly played some dirty tricks against me. But I'm still there. I'm still enjoying the job. I still like working for the City of Armidale, and I'm not a retreater. And as far as I'm concerned, I'll be still there for some time to come.
And the heir apparent to Rosemary Leach denies he's behind attempts to get rid of the mayor.
Rosemary Leach has been elected mayor. Certainly from my point of view, I respect that position, and I will continue to do so whilst ever she carries office till the expiration of her office.
This latest controversy has further divided the council, and there appears to be no quick solution, with the next mayoral election still 6 months away.
ran 20.62 in my semi-final at Nationals, then I ran 20.35 in the final. It was a bit windy, but that puts me right up in the top 10, top 16 in the world.
In 1991, Lake Macquarie Council held a public seminar on the Environmental Offences and Penalties Act. It warned local companies of the consequences of polluting. Now Council is putting its warning into action. Last week it successfully prosecuted Cardiff company Hawker Noise. The company was found guilty of allowing waste oil to escape into Winding Creek. Justice Stein fined the company $30,000 and also ordered it to pay the Lake Council's court costs. If a Lake Macquarie company does pollute, the discharge will eventually end up here in the lake. So Council is getting tough. Not only have they prosecuted Hawker and Noise, but they're also taking 3 other local companies to court. Council will not name those companies until they appear in court. However, it's known Council is concerned by the illegal discharge coming from Cardiff Industrial Estate. If a company is found guilty of polluting a waterway, it faces heavy penalties.
Under the Environmental Offences and Penalties Act, and that Act allows for a fine of up to $1 million for a corporation.
Director of Environmental Services John Park says those companies that do pollute will pay the price. Les Oxenbridge and Julie Savage have been campaigning hard to see Fame Cove turned into a national park. Because of their lobbying, Environment Ministers Hartcher and Kelly have agreed to jointly purchase the land for public use. But that's where their cooperation has ended. State Minister Chris Hartcher wants the federal government to also share the cost of managing the site, but Ros Kelly doesn't agree. She wants Great Lakes Shire Council and the Friends of Fame Cove group to assist in the overseeing. And while their toing and froing goes on, time is running out to save the peninsula.
Time is running out very much. We've only got until next Tuesday, and then the block of land goes on the open market, and people of Port Stephens have really lost a good deal.
The Friends of Fame Cove believe the state government is being unreasonable.
They seem to keep coming up with problems, and we see these problems as not being big problems. They're problems of management and so forth that could be worked out afterwards, but the main thing is to secure the deal.
All that's required for owners Australian Paper Manufacturing is a letter of intent to buy the land, but as yet that hasn't happened.
Once the deadline is passed, you can bet your life the people of Port Stephens are not going to let this rest, and they're going to force the state government into buying it at the full price without the benefit of the federal offer.
Jodie McKay, NBN News.
These are the hands that have plucked the songs that have sold more than 50 million records worldwide. Mind you, Suzi Quatro's music is usually not so serene. Almost 20 years ago, Suzi was the woman who buried the cutesy image of female singers under a mound of leather and bad attitude.
There wasn't a successful female musician in a rock and roll band leading a band, of all things. Nobody had taken charge. So I kind of kicked down the door, but it needed kicking down badly. It's a lot easier now.
Suzi doesn't live off her legend. She's still writing and recording songs, although she hasn't tired of playing her huge 70s hits like 48 Crash and Devilgate Drive.
Oh, you can't get tired of your hits. You just can't. They evoke so many memories.
Suzi, do you still wear leather?
I still wear leather, and believe it or not, it still fits. I actually zipped up my original jumpsuit the other day. The one from 1974, and that's after 2 kids. You try to do that. So I got a bit carried away with myself then.
Actually, if you've got the leather suit here, I'll try it.
He's kinky, kinky.
I've just indicated to the Prime Minister that I'll be stepping aside as a Minister, not wishing to contest the ministerial ballot or the consideration of the composition of the ministry.
And with that announcement yesterday, Bob Brown not only ruled himself out from continuing as Land Transport Minister, the Hunter lost its sole link to the previous Keating front bench. The ALP won 5 seats in the Hunter region in the weekend's federal election, but parliamentarian Eric Fitzgibbon believes it's unlikely any of those MPs will be in the new Keating ministry. But the member for Hunter doesn't believe that means poorer representation for this region, considered the Labor heartland.
It's very difficult for the Prime Minister to determine who's in the ministry. We have to look at the question of gender. We have to look at the question of regional representation. Now, with 5 members, 6 members representing this area now, well, really, do you need a ministerial voice?
While the Keating ministry won't be known until next week, the Hunters Labor MPs are hopeful that Michael Lee from the Central Coast seat of Dobell will be placed on the front bench.
And I believe that the relationship between Michael Lee and the members who are currently here representing Newcastle and Maitland and Cessnock seats will work very well together. There'll be a great cohesive effort and we'll get results for Newcastle.
Scott Bevan, NBN News. In the same week that Lake Macquarie Council granted Mayor Doug Carley 4 weeks leave for an as-yet unspecified illness, the city's former leader, Ivan Welsh, has written to Local Government Minister Jerry Peacock asking him to step in. Mr Welsh has requested a state government inquiry into the council, particularly investigating the reasons for the mayor's absence.
Well, I believe that the Labor Party is forcing the mayor out of his office. Now, that may or may not be true, but that's what I believe is happening. And if they are, then they're interfering with the democratic process.
Mr Welsh has suggested sacking the council should be considered, but in a surprise announcement this afternoon, Alderman Carley said he was returning to work on Monday. He wouldn't say why he was cutting his sick leave short or what his illness is, except that it's a virus. He says he'll make a full statement on Monday.